You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
This podcast is presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, who have been telling Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. Follow them online at oklahomahof.com, and then definitely follow them on Instagram for all the information that you need, because I'm sure that's where you follow us as well, at oklahomahof. Let's get into today's episode.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode in Oklahoma City today with Jeff Ragan to talk about his amazing company called KiZE Concepts. You've probably tried one of his bars. First time I tried one was at Eote Coffee after a particularly long bike ride, and it was awesome. I grabbed two, I think. Awesome little bar and made from a lot of awesome natural ingredients. So we're definitely going to dive into all that stuff soon. But Jeff, really appreciate you having me down to share some stories.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having us, and thanks for buying those two bars after that bike ride.
It was much needed for sure. It was like halfway point, and I cycled from my house. It was about 25 miles to Eote, and then I rode 25 miles back, and I definitely needed that second mile going back. So, but yeah, I'd kind of seen them on the shelf, and then, when I looked on Instagram and did some digging on the website, I was like, oh, you guys are in town? No way. So reached out straight away, and here we are 2 weeks later. So
awesome. Hey, you get things done. I like that.
Yeah, trying to move fast, and it's great to share Oklahoma stories, and you being so close, and I'm sure you have a huge passion for this stuff. Otherwise, you wouldn't have started. But, were you born and raised in Oklahoma? Are you from here growing up originally?
Yeah, yes, sir. Born and raised in Oklahoma City, northwest part of Oklahoma City. Went to Putnam City North High School. Graduated. Went to University of Oklahoma. Moved back. Been in Oklahoma City my whole life. I'm a very passionate Okie, and I think for me it's funny too because we do natural food, and so as we've grown and we've traveled, people are always like, why aren't you in California, New York, or Chicago, or Austin? And it's like, we're like the token people from Oklahoma, and my response was always like, well, we deserve it there too. And for me, it's like, yeah, it may be harder, but it's better. And for me, it's always, the hardest things are the best things. And so we've been given so much from the great people of this state and this city and this community. And so, it's a really big passion and goal of mine to give back, and really not just to give back, but to really be leaders in the community, in our actions. So. Yeah,
that's cool stuff. So grew up, PC North, and went there, played a lot of sports, I assume, growing up, football and everything.
Yeah. The sports was kind of the original passion, and then that kind of transferred into, I'd say, health and wellness, probably high school, and then kind of transitioned into college and post-college. And then once I had the sad reality that, I wasn't going to take Russ's path and be in the NBA, you had to figure out what was kind of next. And so really got into health and fitness, and kind of how I arrived at the KiZE stuff was I was an entrepreneurship major at the University of Oklahoma, and it was very new at the time. And they'd have lots of business people that were either OU alumni or just did business in the Oklahoma City metro, and they would come in, and man, it was just storytelling, and it was just such live and active learning. It was like podcast before podcast without the technology. It was just in person storytelling and conversations, and I just remember loving that. And kind of one of the common themes was like, success probably in my mind before I got to college, or in it, it's like, if I close my eyes, what does success look like? It's like, you're probably wearing a suit and you're living downtown and you're like, working this 100-hour, just something dumb.
Driving a Porsche.
And for me, it was like, it really got clear in that moment. It was like, success is like helping people and making a difference with what your gifts, your callings, your passions, your strengths. So for me, it was like, I really graduated unemployed. It wasn't the dream or vision that I have back when, kind of the economy was booming, but it was such a blessing in disguise because it really put me on that self-discovery journey to answer that question. What am I passionate about? And I really arrived at 3 things. I love helping people. I don't think anything's better than that, whether you're helping a grandma across the street or someone with a workout plan or, whatever. I loved health and fitness, and that's why people wanted my help at the time. So kind of an understanding of maybe like a strength or a gift. And, hey, Jeff, can you write me a diet? Can you write me a workout? Can you motivate me? Can you encourage me? And I liked entrepreneurship. I tell people I can't sing, I can't dance, I can't draw. I wouldn't say I have any of those artistic or creative things, but I feel like we're all creating the image of the creator to create great things to help people and make a difference. And so kind of put all those things together. Was doing kind of life coaching or health coaching, some boot camps on the side. I ended up getting a job at Chesapeake Energy, but spent about 2 years on the side, nights, weekends, lunches, working on that, and just kind of got to the point where I was like, I got to go for this. So they call it a leap of faith for a reason, because I had no clue. Yeah. I mean, literally no clue. Still feel like I have no clue.
You have a great team around you.
Oh, super great. Yeah. Everybody that's ever touched foot in this building, or any customer that's bought something one time or reposted or shared or said something. I mean, I say this is our deal. Like, I really do believe that wholeheartedly, that KiZE is an Oklahoma thing. Like, this is Oklahoma with KiZE. And so it's a community effort, because if, I tell people, it doesn't matter how much we care. Like, if no one else cares or believes or supports, we're gone. Yeah. I mean, so it really is a testament to all the people that have supported us, inside out, from our home here, and going from there.
Yeah. So when you're at OU and you're doing entrepreneur class and you're working out and were you a gym instructor? Were you an instructor, like health and fitness instructor, or like were you just had a passion?
Intramural junkie, and into all of that. So
So you had a passion for obviously health and fitness and working out, and that's been something from a young age.
Yeah,
high
absolutely.
School, stuff like that. So I guess when you graduate, you've been doing entrepreneurship, and then do you just take the job because it's like a safe route?
Yeah, great question. So I actually started part-time while I was in college. It was basically like cutting open boxes in a basement and, doing some different like computer-related moves. But it was, I would say, very kind of blue-collar work. But for me, it was 2008 when I was graduating college, and I mean, every like company I was interviewing for, they would lay off like 10,000 people the next week. And so it was like, it just got to this point where like there was nothing. And I always joke, my mom doesn't have a basement, but I was like, I graduated college, but I moved back home and lived in my mom's basement. It's like not what you want as like a 22-year-old. Like, I'm thinking I'm going to go live the high life. And, but it was so good for me because it didn't let me go get comfortable into a certain lifestyle, and it forced me to go self-discover and find that. So I was always really thankful for that chapter, because I always kind of call it like self-discovery, and not in a way, but I remember my dad telling me growing up, from like 22 to 25, you'll grow more than any other time in your life. And I feel like that was very true for me. But I sought that growth. Like, I worked hard to grow, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, professionally. And so having the humility to take what we'd call an underemployed job, but it was great because it allowed me to, truthfully, it prepared me for this, looking back, because I worked in like a basement with lots of like shipping and receiving and inventory with like 7 guys crammed in a room, and like that's been the history of KiZE in a sense. So it's kind of funny how that works. Yeah.
So when officially, I guess, did you start working on KiZE then?
Yeah, so the official would kind of be the beginning of like 2013. I quit my job at Chesapeake full time at the end of 2012. Yeah. So I kind of treat January of 13, but I would have been working on it on the side as early as 2011. Okay. So I feel like the first probably 3 or 4 years, it was like we were just stuck in a warehouse west of downtown in the farmer's market, just trying to figure out how to make stuff. Yeah. And we'd be there all day. And it was funny because I showed you, our production before, but, we started with like a little kitchen mixer that you do like 10 pounds, and you think that's big. And, we're hand molding and doing this and that. And now, we've made hundreds of thousands of millions of bars. Yeah. But it's just funny looking back on that. And then it's like, then the weekends you'd go to the farmer's market or a different event, and then eventually like in a grocery store when we started doing that. And so I'd say not till probably really like the first maybe 3-4 years into it. You start building some traction, you get into Whole Foods, and then that kind of had a good domino effect because then you kind of have credibility with other people. So they're like, oh, you're in Whole Foods. You're not just like this guy being like, hey, like, come aboard.
Yeah.
we really care. But yeah, so it's been going a while, and but I don't feel like we've started. You know, I feel like time is so weird in my KiZE life because I feel like I've done it forever, but I feel like we're just getting started. So, and I think that's important for everybody because I think so often, each day is a gift. It's a new opportunity. And so keeping kind of that newness and that freshness, it at least brings excitement and opportunity and challenge amidst all the pain and struggle and headaches and heartaches from, everything on the path. So.
Yeah. Where does the name come from?
It's a name I made up, derived from the Japanese word kaizen, which is like continuous improvement or change for the better. So, I was kind of, what am I going to call this? And I was like, I wanted just to be something that embodied kind of my values and my personality. And so for me, it was just, I always want to get better and grow and be my best. And I want to help people do the same. So it was just kind of that continuous improvement, opportunity. And I tell people whether we make bars or pencils or T-shirts or podcasts, like we want to help people. We want to help people live better, be better, and kind of go from there. So.
Yeah. That's really cool. I like that, and it's a great, great company motto to go by, right? Always continuing to improve and push the boundaries, and just in every aspect of the business, right? Giving back, or the nutritional side, whatever it is, like that's it's a great center of the business.
Yeah, and it helps you be reminded a little more easy because I think a lot of times, like I find a lot of young people, especially, it's like you get started on passion. And you get going, and then the reality is you got to learn how to run a business, and you get hit hard. You got to do all the back. There's all these things that come, and then you got to figure out how to make it survive. So there's obviously a monetary component, even with the most altruistic type people, even like myself. But I think it's critical to always remember your why. Yeah. Why did you start? And if you don't lose sight of that why and make that why big and strong and concrete. It'll keep you going, especially in the valleys or, when you can't see things, you don't feel like you have any traction, and it's important. And the other funny thing I learned about the name is like it's been called the wrong thing about 1,000 times, but it actually like gets that question a lot. Yeah. So it does kind of leave an opportunity to share a little more about the story, if that's so. KiZE, KiZE. I mean, I've heard all sorts of stuff, and it's kind of funny, but
yeah, that is funny, and it makes you stand out, right? It makes people remember you. And then when they get it right,
it's not Jeff Bar, you know. So
little dig there. I got that. So, you mentioned like giving back and all that kind of stuff, and reminding, just having a constant reminder with a name. But when did you think like getting in the food industry is? I mean, it's almost like getting in the apparel industry. Like they're both very, very competitive, very big, like barriers to entry to break into with making money, doing it for the rest of your life type business. I mean, obviously this must be in a dream or something for a while, right?
Oh man, it's kind of funny. It's actually not, because when I was really digging into all of that, I loved this part, the relational connection. So it was like kind of the life coaching or health coaching, right? Yeah. So I'm in this path, and what I kept hearing over and over and over again was like, well, I want to be healthier, but healthy eating sucks and I don't have time. It was like, that was the words I kept hearing. And finally it was like, and I don't know how many times I had to hear that, but I'm like, man, I think there's an opportunity here. And for me, that's probably 24, 25 at the time. And I was like, well, that's not true. Like, I don't spend more than 5 minutes on anything, but I kind of like to alliterate. I'm also a nerd, but for me, easy, enjoyable, truly energizing. And so I kind of took this like oatmeal, like this kind of protein oatmeal thing that I would make, and then I tried to make it into a cookie, and that failed. And then basically I turned it into like a fudge or like a pan, but it was just 4 ingredients, nutritionally balanced, dense, whatever. I started giving it to people. I kept getting good feedback, and this was both from health conscious and not health conscious. And they'd be like, oh, this tastes like peanut butter fudge, or this tastes like a no-bake cookie. And anyways, I just kind of started going down that path, and I arrived into food, which was
Yeah.
crazy because it's so hard. It's so complex. The last thing I ever wanted to do was be in bars. And the first thing we had was like a big Kit Kat in like a plastic bag with wrapped, and they were perforated, and that was a nightmare. And you learn the pain of like packaging and all sorts of stuff. But the crazy thing there was like people had great response, but they'd like, I like them too much. And I was like, what do you mean you like them too much? Like, I feel bad. I eat the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I really arrived. And so, I really was, that was a crazy learning lesson for me early on. I was like, so you're telling me we make something, you enjoy it, you love it, and because of that, you don't want to eat it as much.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, I'd rather eat something like crappy. They don't feel bad. It basically was a portion size issue.
Yeah,
So anyways, we morphed into the bar, and now you're in bars, and now we're trying to figure out how to make bars, and it's a whole different beast at that level. But that's kind of always been the struggle of like, I love the relationship. For me, life's about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Resources plus relationship equals real life change. To me, that's living charity, living on mission.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had to learn how to do the food part, which disconnects us, right? Because we got to be in the back to figure out how to manage it and bring things to life. So it's been an unbelievably painful challenge, but it's been a great journey. And it's kind of funny because I always say the problem that we're actually solving is people are hungry, and our solution is we feed people. But I mean that in a very holistic sense. So, kind of mind, body, heart, and soul. And so kind of the dream was always just to build a company that really loves people well. Yeah. Because you think about it, it's like I would always see this, and I saw it when I was at Chesapeake when I worked there back in the heyday. It's like everybody lived for the weekend.
Yes.
Well, why? Yeah. That made no sense to me. So I'm like, you're flunking life. Like 2 out of 7 days are great, but the other 5 you're just like you hate and you're counting down. I'm like, well, why do people like the weekends more? Well, typically you're doing what you want with who you want. And I'm like, what if we had this company that like it felt like a family and friend or a team, and you went out and like really loved people well. Yeah. And that's kind of been what it's been at. And obviously like family and friends and teams, there's painful moments and highs and lows and whatever. But I think that's a prayer of mine every morning, is just to like be unified, be one, go have fun, make a difference. And I know for a long time I really, you think about trying to help the homeless or the youth in our community or the different orphan stuff we do in Haiti. But I've realized, the biggest mission and the biggest impact I can have on our team, right here. And we have a very diverse group of people. We've got several guys from a program called Hope is Alive, if you're familiar with that. But
is that Lance?
Yeah. So their stories are just unbelievable. I mean, we've had guys shot in the head, almost killed, guys that live in this neighborhood. And for me, it's like, I don't need more motivation, but like, I want this to be as much as it can for them and for their families and their kids, and to make generational change. Yeah. And to let that pour out through the city, like through that. So,
having a true impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, not just, like I said, one person or one generation, but making a difference so that these people can have families, and then those families and kids look back to where things changed for their family, and they can look back at KiZE.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So at Chesapeake, you were working on this stuff on the side, and people were liking it. And then you start, I guess, you're working all hours of the night and on weekends at farmers markets, and you start getting it into stores while you're still at Chesapeake?
No, so I think probably for about 6 months I was doing both.
Yeah.
Actually trying to get out and do the stuff on the weekends, like in the farmers market. And it was crazy because my very first farmer market ever was at... oh gosh, I think it was at St. Anthony's Hospital or Children's Hospital. Either way, it was one of the ones closer downtown. And you're so nervous. You have no idea. I might have taken a vacation day to go do this. I mean, I can't even remember. But all I remember is the very first person I sampled tried it, and she goes, ugh. And she goes, is this peanut butter? Which that was the flavor type. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, oh, I don't like peanut butter. And that was my very first person. And I was like, oh crushed. But it's a real lesson that everyone has to go through. And so obviously things went better from there. But I mean, I took vacation days to go take food workshops at OSU, starting how to start a food business.
Yeah.
So I was really trying to, just go all in. And I think originally, I know for a fact, I had this, because I liked working at Chesapeake. That's the thing. A lot of times people think when you quit something or you close the chapter on one area that you always hated or it was bad. And
Right.
It was good. I met some lifelong friends at Chesapeake. I was exposed to good leaders and good workers and bad workers and X, Y, and Z. But I think I had this vision of like, I'll work at Chesapeake forever and I'll have the security and the benefits and whatever, and I'll do this on the side. And once it grows on the side, then I'll make the move. And I just realized I'm going, there's no way it could get off the ground without me going all in. And, I always say, like, they call it a leap of faith for a reason, because you have no clue. And the way I looked at it was the only risk was not taking one. I was 25 years old, no dependents, no whatever. And just let it rip and went for it.
Yeah.
And for me, it's a leap of faith every day, especially now in COVID times. But, we're committed and we're going down the path. And so.
Yeah, it's kind of a perfect time, right? You're like, I'm still, it's not like, it's a bigger risk if you're 40 doing it than at 25, but it's still a risk, like you have a cushy job, you're making money, you're enjoying life, you're enjoying your friends, you're building relationships at work. But you have this thing on the side that's like chipping away at you.
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
This could be something.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I think it's so funny because people always say that's a risk. I'm like, what's not a risk? I'm like, especially now, I'm like, you can't go anywhere without putting a mask on. Because everything's a risk. Going anywhere, doing anything's a risk. And it's like, well, man, you might as well find what, like you said, what's that thing on your heart or in your head that you're like, I got to go try to do this. And as long as it's pure and with good intentions and you really flesh through that, it's like, man, go for it. Because I think, shout out to Russ too, one of my favorite things for Russ is it's like, why not? And a thing that I always said, and it goes back to my college days, but no what ifs, and people regret the things that they don't do and don't go for than the things they do. And it sounds easy sitting here and saying that, but it's a thing I fight every day for certain things of we're predisposed for, especially when you become an adult, to security and safety when you're made for love and greatness. And in that there's the cost, the deposit down on that is courage and risk and going for that. But the ROI on that is, it's exponential.
Well, and also like the potential, like looking back in 10 years and regretting it, like regret that I will, if I see you on the street and I'm like, hey, remember, like, and I was friends with you in college or friends with you at Chesapeake, I'm like, hey, what happened to your idea at KiZE? Like, what happened to that? And you're still working at Chesapeake. That cuts deep, doesn't it? Whereas now you're like, oh, like we've gone all out, we've built this business, we've had tough days, but we're giving back and we're having a great time and we're still going, I feel like I'm just getting started, but we're still moving forward. There's two different feelings there, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's wild that when you said that, it just took me to like really clear visuals when I had put in my notice. So now I had like 2 weeks left.
Yeah.
And it was unbelievable how many people pop their heads in to kind of say their goodbyes or whatever. But it's like I could see them thinking about the thing, especially the people that were in like their 40s or 50s or 60s. It was amazing. And some of them like, oh, I could never do that. But it's like I could see them thinking about that thing that they didn't go for.
Yeah.
And thinking about that now, I'm like, oh, it just makes me shiver and it makes me so sad. But that's where I'm like, I want to give my life away as an example. If it can help one person, then I think it's worth it. If it can help two or more, that's great. But it's like, I'll be the crazy person that goes out there and, sacrifices and whatever and gets beat up through the process. But hopefully that can help somebody go, dude, that got me going. And I've had this thing and I'm like, I'm going for it, because there's freedom in that. And like I said, there's no guarantee, people, it's like you think here's a perfect example. Staying at Chesapeake was the secure or safe thing. Look at Chesapeake now compared to where it was 10 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So is it safer?
Yeah. Could be any business.
Could be any business.
Yeah.
So, especially in COVID times. So.
Yeah. So you give your notice in, you got 2 weeks, it's getting real, and then you're at the commercial kitchen trying to figure out with this little 10-pound maker, trying to just thinking of how many flavors do you have? It then it was just one.
So originally it was kind of three to five that I was kind of working in my home kitchen, and then kind of went through all that, and it was just wild because it was like we couldn't even really get them to mix or stick together, and I'm like, how in the world am I quitting my job to go do this thing? But it's like, in hindsight, you're looking back, I'm like, if I'm ever a parent one day, I'm like, what would I say? Like,
what was I doing?
But I'm like, we've been super blessed and fortunate to keep growing, and I think that time was wild because not only was I quitting to start a business, I knew nothing about, I didn't even know where to go. I didn't know who to talk to. A lot of times, most people quit something, like let's say you work in an oil and gas company, you do that for 10 years, and you quit and you start your own oil and gas company.
They have
at least
a plan.
You have oil and gas. Yeah.
There's a plan there.
And people in the industry. I'm like, I'm doing oil and gas and I go into food manufacturing, and it probably took me years just to even figure out we were in, to admit that I'm like, we're into just helping people and like healthy living.
When someone asks you, what do you do? You're like,
and I'm like, I don't like people to say food manufacturer, make bar. I was like, I don't like the normal thing of people. So it's like, we're in the feeding business or, whatever. But it was like, it was brutal. But I'd say one thing that I would encourage everybody would be find a mentor. I was super, super blessed and fortunate. One of my professors, I think he followed me, or I was in Norman maybe 6 months into it. Maybe longer, I don't remember the time, and he was asking how it was going, and I'm like, oh my God, we're losing our minds, I'm pulling my hair out, I don't know, but I'm like, we'd had some traction and doing stuff, so he's like, you have like manufacturing issues, and I'm like, absolutely, we have issues. And he's like, well, I know a guy, might be a good time, and I'll link you up. So he links me up, and sets up an email with this guy, so he said he would meet, so I go out and meet, and show up to this place, and I go in, and I know nothing about who I'm being or anything. I show up, and this old guy kind of comes out, and he's probably 75 years old, and I'm like, oh, okay, sweet, which like I love. And we sit down, and it's kind of like you and me, proximity, and we're talking, and I'd never been in a conversation that I felt someone was so dialed in and so came. They hadn't met me for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I've talked to some people at this point, right? And they give advice and they listen. It's awesome and you appreciate it. And if you can take one thing out of it or give one thing to them, it's really great, right?
Yeah.
And he's like taking notes, which to me is always an action of like, wow, like I'm important, or what I'm saying is important to you, and you may be an action taker.
Yeah.
And then it was like in mid thing, he bends down and he picks up the yellow pages, which I thought was hilarious. I'm like, who does the yellow pages? And he's like flipping through, and then he turns around and he's like, then he had to call someone. He's like, how do I get these new phones to work? And he calls this guy and he's like, yeah, hey, so-and-so. He's like, this is Dave McLaughlin, like advanced, whatever. And he's like, I thought you were dead. And he was like, I thought you were dead. And they're both like, ha, 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 ha. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I sitting on? But long story short, you had someone that cared and was trying to help out and find solutions. And I would say I would always take something from that. And then I would try to follow up and just say, hey, like, I did what you said and this is what happened. And I would say after maybe a year, I probably had a relationship there where he was calling me and we're doing and long story short, I built this great relationship and friendship that means so much more to me than any of the advice. But, one thing I always tell people, and I think it's a mistake from entrepreneurial, teaching or whatnot, is I think people think the constraint is money, and it's not money, it's wisdom. You can get all the money in the world if you don't know what to do with it. And so for me, and being a relationship guy, I'm like, you gravitate to people that are wise and caring and kind, and they've been professionally successful. But in my mind, more importantly, it was not at the expense of being personally distraught and broke. They have great families and, impacted people. So for me, it was really awesome. And so not everyone can maybe have an in-person, but books, videos, podcasts, find people that you can really learn from and do life with, because then it's doubly sweet, right? Like if you get something and it goes into action and it becomes fruitful, that's awesome. And then if you have a friend in the process, that's doubly awesome. So
yeah. Is Dave still around?
Oh yeah.
That's good.
Dave's awesome. I actually had dinner with him and his family last night at an event, and so he's probably 83 or something now, but it's just like I just feel like he's like my buddy, and to me, I'm going, I would trade so many things, away, but that relationship is that's, hopefully this doesn't happen, but if KiZE were to close down or not be what I want it to be, the people that I've met along the journey are worth it, and he's towards the top of the list. So.
That's so cool. I love that story. That's awesome. So Dave's helping a lot. Everything's going well. You're getting solutions, and wheels will start turning. You start getting doing farmers markets still, and then you start getting into like little boutique stores, I assume, first, and then and how do you? Tell me about that. About getting it's like getting into stores, and then
so kind of the path is I was really focused on who are somebody that would value this and do it and go in. So we really started with like little fitness studios and little coffee shops and whatnot. And so I think our first place was it's not even there anymore, Body Rock Fitness and Cafe, and it was over on Penn in Britain. And I know Soul Yoga was an early place, and Native Roots was like our first grocery store, down in Deep Deuce. And, it's slow and steady. It's not quick. It's not glamorous. It's not whatever. It's, I always think about kind of the law of the harvest. I think of farmers, like you can't cheat being a farmer. Like you can't take days off. You can't be like, I don't feel like working the field today. Like you're not going to get a crop.
There's a strict process.
There's a process. And it's just, for me, kind of patient persistence, you sow it and, you grow it, but you got to put it in. And I think that's the challenge when you don't know what you're doing, is you don't know what good activity necessarily is. And I still say it today. It's like I have buddies that are, dentists or physical therapists, and it's like their schedule's set 6 months in advance, and I'm like, that's kind of nice, because I'm waiting, I'm going, I don't know what the best use of our time and resources are today, and then you got to guide 15 plus other people with that. And so but we did that. And then I kind of chased down this Whole Foods buyer for about 2 years, and she hated our original packaging. It was a plastic bag, and then she basically said, if you make this smaller and you make the packaging nicer, because I saw her at a thing, and she's like, I've been hearing about you lately. And I'm like, I'm out there trying, and would still love the opportunity just to, be in this Whole Foods in Oklahoma City. And basically we found a coffee bag that we could fit our hand in. And this was miserable, hand wrapping these labels, stuffing them, but we figured out the importance of color and packaging and presented her, and it looked weird. It didn't look like, what we have now, like something that a machine would do. It was about twice the size, and, they sold them super pricey. And I remember the guy telling us, he was like, you're going to fail. You're not going to do it. Like the guy in the store, once like she got us in, and I was like, oh my gosh,
thanks.
People are brutal. But, we basically lived in there. I think the expectation was to demo maybe once a month or twice a month. And I bet we were in there 2 to 3 times a week, 3 to 4 weeks a month for forever. And we got to a point where we were the highest selling bar in the Southwest region at one point, and we were only in 13 of the 40 stores. And that's a testament to the amazing people of Oklahoma City. Once again, that's not why I love Oklahoma City. That would have been at 20-something years old. But that was just a reminder of going, oh, my God, people are so amazing, because here we are, like, pouring our lives into this, you know, and people are supporting. And
they go into stores and seeking out KiZE bars over other bars.
Yeah, I tell their friends, and you know, especially at the time, I think at Whole Foods they were like $4.
Yeah,
you know, and it's like we're like $2.49 now, but it's like, I mean, they weren't the cheapest, they weren't the prettiest looking, and people supported, and like that just means so much. And that's why I just love local business and just local community of going. It's amazing when people can come together and support. That's why I love what you're doing. Share people's stories, you know, get to know it. I love finding and meeting awesome people like yourself and what they're doing. And especially because I know I've been on the other side of that, and it feels so good. And it's such an extra kind of fill up in your tank, especially on that of, you know, it's amazing how someone reaches out and like, for all the haters out there, it's that, you know, the one person go, man, I love this, or I found this to help me in my bike ride, like, thank you, or you know, whatever. And you're like, keep going.
I needed that today.
Exactly.
How did you find the buyer? For like people listening, they might be thinking about starting something up. I mean, you know, Whole Foods is like the goal for people, right? How do you find that buyer?
Yeah, so it's different now, specifically with Whole Foods, because Amazon bought them. So that really changed. It made it a lot harder for small and startups. But at the time, I don't know if someone gave me her info or like I figured out their email chain and I heard the buyer's name. So I'll guess. Like I'll guess on people's emails. I always say go to people's website, see how their email structure is. You can find anybody and you can find their name. Just guess it.
Something at the company.
Something at first dot, last at, first initial, last name. I mean, the worst case you're going to get is an unreceivable email. So it might have been that. I got a meeting. She was nice, but it's kind of like, whatever. I'm over 4 states and I don't come up here much or whatever. But I think the second time I ran into her, they had a scheduled thing at the Department of Agriculture. And I went and I got a meeting and I kind of pitched and it's like, oh, there you are again. But she was, I remember saying, she's like, I've been hearing about you. And I felt good at that. And, she basically said, hey, you know, sounds like you're getting some traction. Sounds like you're growing. I like your product. I like you. I like the story. But she's like, I need to be at a certain price point. And she marked it up big time. So, you know, that was kind of hedging their deal. It's like, well, we're going to make a lot of money, you know.
If we're taking a risk on you, we're going to take some money.
Exactly. But, you know, my advice to everyone would be, once again, if you have a mentor, they can help you. They probably know buyers or people. So that's a great way to start. If you're going cold, like I said, the email, but there's a lot of different tools now. I mean, I think I'm not real tech savvy or social media, but searching on social media, trying to connect with people on social media, you know, LinkedIn, Instagram, something like that, I think is always good. But I don't know how the world of trade shows is going to look going forward, but that was always big for us when we were trying to take the next step to kind of regional, national, is that, you know, you got to get in front of people. And at the end of the day, cold emailing or cold calling, I mean, I get a million calls and emails that, I mean, I'm not going to answer or respond to just by the nature of my priorities every time I venture off. But if you are going to send an email, send a great subject heading and something simple and clear that's set up where they can answer quickly. Because if you're sending a novel or something that's unclear, even if they do happen to read it, it just doesn't work that way.
Put your question in the title.
And I mean, there's literally been people too that I've found over the years that I've like set up time to either respond to or have a phone call with just because they were so persistent or they started changing stuff. And I was like, I respect the hustle. I respect the creativity. And I've told people that, or I've even told people, I'm like, hey, I'm not really interested in your service, but I'll take a call with you just because I think you're doing a great job trying to reach out and do that. So, I mean,
Yeah, and that's one thing that, like, you know, having patience and persistence and continuous follow-up in anything, you know, and it gets to that point where, you know, you've consistently been knocking on the door, you're going to the trade shows, you're in all the smaller stores, you know, you start small and you slowly build from there, and then when that buyer sees you from Whole Foods, she's like, I've been hearing about you, and you're like, yeah, because I've been working at it, you know, and then you get that Whole Foods deal. And then the snowball continues to roll, right? And then you use that in every pitch. You're like, hey, we're in Whole Foods, right? That's a bit of a weight to carry.
Yeah.
You know, that adds brand value for sure. Mm-hmm. So then from there, I assume it was it, you know, not overnight success, but like it helped with the pitches going forward.
Yeah, there was definitely a big momentum off of that because it gives credibility. And I think, you know, just, you know, here's, I think, a misnomer, especially in food, and we've fallen victim to this. I mean, it's hurt us because our model initially was we do everything.
Yeah.
We source our ingredients, we make them, we distribute them. I mean, we literally were driving them to the store, stocking the shelves, and then walking out and demoing to try to get them off the shelves. I mean, we were doing everything.
Yeah.
Well, that only worked to a certain geographical area. And so once we kind of grew past that, then we were kind of forced to go on this distributor route, and it hasn't been excellent for us because we've had so many quality issues. We get disconnected from what's going on at the store level. I mean, we knew all the workers at Whole Foods. They knew us, you know. Well, then you got somebody coming in and they're going, which bar should I try? And they go, oh man, you should try KiZE because these guys are local and they're awesome, and you know, they do stuff in Haiti and here locally and yada yada yada. And so that was something that was tough because, you know, there's trade-offs for different levels of growth or really with anything. And so I think we're still, especially now, trying to navigate to that because what we've learned is, like when we got in Walmart, I thought and that was a big thing. I was driving to Bentonville and with one of our other guys, and you know, that was crazy because they're like Walmart, and you know, they're like, okay, we'll do a small test, and we're like, okay, perfect, small test, and like, you know, be 1,000 stores, and we're like, 1,000 stores, that's not small, you know. And that was the whole thing too. They're like, you know, because we're a small supplier, and she was like, I remember her saying, literally, we had the most ideal timing. It was right before lunch, because a lot of time, this is what's frustrating. Like, people don't try the product.
Yeah,
these buyers, they don't try the product. I'm like, I didn't try the product.
Yeah.
But we got her to try it, and she was like, oh my God, this is like my favorite bar ever. I'm the bar buyer at Walmart, and like, this is my favorite bar. And I was like, oh my God.
So where did you meet this? Like, you didn't know she was the bar, like the.
No, we did. Yeah, we got a meeting. Yeah,
sorry.
We got
so
a
this
meeting.
is in the meeting.
We went in, and this is like, you know, their rounds of everything. So you're one of 100.
So this is in the meeting. She's like, I am the buyer, and like, I love this.
Yeah, because we didn't know, because her title was weird. It was like portable snacks, and we're like, what does that mean? And anyways, long story short, like, I always thought their concern was like, are you big enough to make it and keep up? And we had just added those investments I'd show you in the equipment and the building, and I was like, yeah, like we can make it. And I mean, it was hundreds of thousands of bars, and we're like, you know, we've never made that much. You know, I believe we can, but there's different challenges with every execution. And but what we really learned is like, oh great, you can make it and it can get to the store, but it can sit in the back, or they don't rotate it, or it doesn't get on the shelf, and all these problems. And so that was where it's like, there's a cost to that. Big companies pay people to go check the shelves, to take the product from the back of the store to put it on the shelf. You know, concentrated marketing dollars per store. I mean, it's like, we don't have any of that. And so that was like just kind of the hard reality of taking the next step. And so just like, that's kind of where we're at now, of going, okay, like, how do we re-evaluate what we're good at, what we're passionate about, what we've learned the hard way, and go forward to put a winning and impactful strategy. And so for me, I think, like, I'm so glad you reached out, because it's like, we were about to launch some different local things, and then the COVID stuff happened. So it's like, you know, you can't really do anything, and or figuring out how to do things online or podcasts or just, engaging relational community building stuff, because I'm just like, we don't really like the dispersonal distributor route. And I know that's what people say you have to do, and that's the game, but we're kind of like, yeah, do you? Because we went forever before we were in a grocery store selling to sports teams and selling to colleges and selling just to different places. And in the grocery business, they want you to pay for the shelf space. They'll deduct you on everything that's literally made up. It's a profit center for them. And it's just doesn't feel right.
People just buy it from our website and we'll ship it to you.
Exactly. Hey, we'll make this fresh. You'll get it within 2 weeks of the product probably being made, and you can have a chance for customer service. And so we're trying to figure out, but we've never done that either. Yeah. And so we were almost 100% retail, and it all gets shut down in COVID. And we'd made these investments, and we had this Walmart test, and we had this Target test in Southern California, and we'd made some different investments, and it was like everything was like, and we're like, oh no. And so then we were just like, okay, well, like, let's help people first and foremost. So we just started donating a lot of product, healthcare workers, different things like that. And then I've always had a passion for the homeless and impoverished youth and stuff, and we ended up making a product. We developed a product in about a week for a food bank, for the local food bank of Central Oklahoma. And it was crazy because we've never had an order like this in our life, but he bought 2 truckloads worth, which was almost like 700,000.
Is that the regional food bank?
Yeah, of Oklahoma. Yeah. And it was almost like 700,000 bars. And we're like, so, and, they're basically free because you basically give them away to them. But for me, it was like we had organic ingredients, simple quality, and the same thing we get to the retail.
The local impact.
Exactly. For me, I'm going the opportunity to know that we just helped feed 700,000 people in our community. Yeah. That's what we're here for. Yeah. And so to me, it's like I want to figure out how can we partner with the state, how can we partner with the school systems, how can we partner with youth sport leagues, churches, nonprofits, people that are out there connecting and going, hey, we're willing to create and make. Who can help distribute? And let's partner to where something that may be $2.50, $3 at the retail level. I'm going, hey, like, let's partner up and
let's figure this out.
Let's figure out how we can get it to $1 or 75 cents or whatever to all these people that are deserving of it. And I feel like that's definitely a short and long-term goal for us.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny you mentioned that because this year I'm on the leadership class for the regional food bank.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it's a little small world. That's really cool. I wonder who the buyer was for that because I probably met him.
Chuck Arnold.
Okay. We've had typical COVID stuff. We haven't met in person yet because we've been having Zoom calls for the first 3 months. But really, the impact and just how much that's needed, the food insecurity around the nation, not just in Oklahoma, it's a huge deal. And I'm sure they really, really appreciate you jumping in and helping out for sure.
Let me know what you figure out because I told people, and I've talked to a few people, and I just started reaching out to people in government that I could because I'm just like, hey, like, this is what we do. This is what we care about. You guys know what's going on. But I'm like, we have capacity, we have capability, and we have the desire to do this. And like I said, we can't give away everything forever, which we do lots of that. But let's find a way to make it sustainable because there are people that, like the food bank, you've got the distribution in place. Okay, well, who either donates to them or who do they send places to? Because, we're across from the homeless shelter. Well, I know we heard they buy stuff from the food bank. So we're like, okay, well, we've got to learn what's the system, what's the piece, and just continue to let people know. I'm going, it's important to us to feed the people higher quality stuff in our community. And the thing I really want to try to get to is, you ever seen the Curbside Chronicles people? The green things. Well, I think about it all the time, and I'm like, magazine, they make that once a month. I'm like, I don't want a magazine, but I love seeing them out there working hard, and I'll just try to talk to people or engage. But I'm like, if we could just give them bars, that's something people could buy every day. You go to your same thing, instead of having to stop at the gas station to go get a snack or a drink, it's like, here's a water and here's a KiZE bar. And we've got some other stuff I'm looking. So we've been in talks of trying to We started in February, but then it all got closed. But like, just trying to figure out how can you make radical life change, you know? And I'm again on a tangent now. So
it's cool because I can see you're passionate about it, right? You know, it's not just like something that's just, you know, hey, it's in our mission, it's cool, we talk about it, but like this, you're really passionate about this stuff. Like I can tell it comes through straight away. So we got all the product. If you're watching the video on Facebook, YouTube, and some of the clips on Instagram, you'll see that there's 10 boxes behind Jeff. So how many flavors do we have right now? And I assume there's more coming.
Yeah. So we like to create. We've got 12 or 13 flavors. So we have 12 retail available, and our 13th is actually the one we made for the food bank, which is funny because some of the people go, I actually love that one.
Where can I buy it?
Should we send that? You know, and you're like, oh, maybe we should figure that out. But yeah, we've got that. I would say, like I said, right now our best bet is website, KiZeConcepts.com, or Amazon. Amazon, we've had problems with quality stuff, so we just started self-fulfilling some of that. But a lot of great local retailers too. I mean, probably too many to name, but we can send that in the notes or whatnot. So
what you mentioned, there's more coming, but there's got to be some like recipes that are just like, these are, you know, the testing ones, and you're like, I can't put this into production, but this one's so good. Yeah. Like, there's got to be some secret.
I'll tell you, if we could do something fun, that would really help us. If we could do like a fun survey of like flavors or types of things that people would want. So we've toyed around with a lot. So as I told you kind of off air, one of the things I've realized is something that I think we have is just being a manufacturer. Yeah. And so we've had other people reach out that want us to make bars for them. And so I love that part. I like the idea of sitting across. It reminds me of when I was honestly doing kind of the life coaching or health coaching. It's like, what's your dream? What's your vision? What's in the way? And how can we help you overcome that and bring that to life? And so, boy, we've worked on some flavors there and learned some new things and tested some new ingredients. So like, we did this white chocolate macadamia one. We did this cashew coconut one. We did a birthday cake, which my struggle on the birthday cake is I can't find a clean and simple sprinkle. Yeah. And I've been told you have to have sprinkles. So that's one of my big questions if listeners want to message or say anything of going, you know, if 99% of the product is, you know, the same whole, dense, solid ingredients, and then one is like this whatever is in the sprinkles, is that like cool, and does that seem to be on brand or like with that? Because, you know, all our stuff is clean and simple and, you know, nutrient dense or whatever. But, and then we've been working on some high protein bars for some other people. So trying to decide, you know, if we should pull that out for our brand as well or whatnot. So like I said, we need people to help with kind of the marketing and sales and, you know, online stuff. But I think that's a thing of going, if we could find some great partners here locally that could help us, we do the stuff for other people because that helps us pay the bills and it helps us serve people and do that. But fundamentally, our brand story and our heart can't get shared as much as it would with the brand. So if we could find someone where we could sell everything online, we could make 50 products. And so we make it, they're ours, they go out there. And so, and so, I mean, we've got pretty much something for everybody. I mean, gluten-free, non-GMO, dairy-free, vegan, keto, plant protein, low sugar. I mean, so, I mean, we have it and we know how to do stuff and we're open to learning that. But, so we're figuring it out. We almost did a seasonal pumpkin spice, but we were behind on when we need the print timeline. So we're thinking about a winter seasonal or maybe rolling something out. It's just like an online only test. So, you know. Yeah,
something different.
Yeah.
Every day is different, it sounds like, right? We've always got something going on. We've always got, you know, good team atmosphere and, I mean, just figuring stuff out.
That's like the most probably culturally thing said is figure it out. Yeah. We just say figure it out. And my kind of philosophy is, well, you're either going to figure it out or you still haven't figured it out yet. So you just need to keep going, so everything is figure it outable to some degree.
To a certain extent, right? Yeah, until you get an answer and it's either a yes, we can do this, or it's a no, we can't. We got to keep figuring it out.
That you could, so,
exactly. Oh, it's so cool. I mean, there's so many stories, I'm sure, of just people, reaching out saying, hey, this is awesome. I love the spa. And culturally, like, hey, you've helped me do this, and that's the stuff that means the most, isn't it? And getting into stores and going through COVID and a small test with Walmart being 1,000 stores, and then Target, and all these different challenges, and you still are able to make bars, right? You still open the doors, you have employees, like, this thing's still moving forward.
Yeah, like I said, we've been super blessed and fortunate, and I mean, that's the thing. You just got to keep going, and you get in those moments, and it's funny because once we start getting in places, people are like, I think people, if they see you in 2 stores, they think you're nationwide everywhere. So it's like, guys, just you everywhere. I'm like,
like you're in the 2, you saw the 2 stores that we were in.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think, you got to be flexible. You got to be patient. You got to be persistent. You got to be prayerful, proactive, purposeful, prioritize. And you got to keep battling, and I think for us, like I said, I just try to get back to what do we have? What's our big why? How can we add value to people's lives and really be excellent in that? And so we're trying to figure out. We don't have all the answers. I mean, if you talk to me, I probably make it sound like the world's falling down half the time, which is what it feels like half the time. But
people are still buying bars. That's all that matters.
Well, yeah, we're open, and like I said, we really want to be an impactor in the state and really do great things and make some generational change for people.
Definitely. So. For people listening, if you listen to this and something resonates with you and you have an idea, I mean, reach out. If you reach out to Jeff, reach out to KiZE Concepts. If you can't get through, reach out to me and we'll figure it out. But like there's a need, and if there's someone out there listening, even if it's one person that knows somebody that's like, oh yeah, this would be great, then reach out and we'll get something figured out for sure. So for everyone listening that wants to buy a bar online, you said KiZEConcepts.com.
Yeah, we'll make a discount code and put in the show notes or whatever.
Let's do that.
Happy to help and
appreciate it.
Yeah.
I mean, plans for the future. I know COVID's kind of ruined your 2020, so I mean, your quote business plan and future, as I guess kind of taking a bit of a hit. But I mean, the goal, I assume, is to grow as big as possible so you can give back as much as possible.
Yeah, I think right now, we're kind of looking inside out. So I think, the first thing was how do we keep all our jobs and how do we keep rising up people in what we're doing? And so that was objective number 1. I think kind of from a strategic standpoint, like I said, let's rein it back in. I mean, like I said, we've had so many customers close, which has killed us. And then, the retailers are in, you can't reach them because you can't demo, you can't do anything. Now you're a small company in a big box store that you can't reach anybody. So you're just like, that's really hurt us too, because we made all the investments to get in there. But like I said, we're trying to figure out how to kind of refocus, I would say kind of a pivot to figuring out how to do the online thing well. And we're looking at the contract manufacturing a lot. I think that's the delineation for me is there's a brand and there's a business, and they're 2 different things. And so the brand may be suffering due to COVID environment stuff, but we've got a lot of opportunities on this contract manufacturing side. So how do we explore that? Same thing like the food bank, that was branded. Well, I mean, we helped do that. So, but we were working 12, 16-hour days nonstop, non-lunch. People were taking 20. I mean, it was really fun for me, but it's not really sustainable for everybody.
Yeah. It's a cool project, but
it was a cool project to be like, let's go from 7 to midnight and not take a break. And we made like 150,000 bars in a day. But we were beat like a drum, you know. So, but how can we do that, right?
But you know that you can do that.
But we know we can do it, and that's always important of stretching yourself and going, wow, we can do that, guys. And you could see people grow through that and going, well, I didn't think we could do that. And so that's always fun for me. But I'd love to see how we could feed through food banks and do that more sustainable.
Yeah, we'll figure that out and get the right people in touch and figure out how we can.
Because that's what I tell them. Like, if we don't have something, I need to understand all the pieces.
Yeah.
And then we'll develop something for that. And to me, it's really a price function is really what I think it is, because I mean, I've seen what people get and I go, we'll make anything healthier and better. And to me, I go, you deserve dignity, not scraps.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Mate, this has been a pleasure. I really appreciate you giving up an hour of your time to share some stories and tell us about KiZE. And, I'm definitely looking forward to stopping at Yote on my weekend bike ride and grabbing some bars for sure.
Awesome.
Fuels me
Appreciate
definitely.
the support, and let us know however we can help. Like I said, we're super passionate about giving back and helping in Oklahoma. And like I said, if people want to message me, I have an Instagram account thing too they made for me. It's Jeffrey, I think, M. Ragan. So if people want to message that, I'll check that occasionally or email or whatever. But we're happy to help and encourage everyone to love your neighbor and give out. And I think we've got a super special state and community, and that's one thing I've noticed when I've traveled too, is that people have been, I literally have a guy, I see him this last story. He's an ingredient supplier. He's like, I've been to 49 of the 50 states, and he said the nicest, best people I've met in the entire country are from Oklahoma. And I'm like, I always love that. And I always know, like, when we travel places, they're like, where are you from? You're not from here. And I'm like, how do you know I'm not from here? And they're like, because you're nice.
Because you held the door open for me.
Because you held the door open, you asked how I was doing, and you actually meant it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, well, how are you doing?
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, again, I can't thank you enough. And guys listening, go to KiZeConcepts.com and then at KiZe Concepts on Instagram. And I'll post all the links for that down below as well. So thanks for listening, and we will catch you next episode. Cheers.
Cheers.
This podcast was presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, who've been telling Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. Follow them online at oklahomahof.com and definitely on Instagram at oklahomahof. Catch you next episode. Cheers.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.